This is the new BMW M4, and we all know the obvious talking point with this car, but I'm not going to get into it. I refuse. I think it's childish. If anything, I actually think that the grille on this car is nothing short of, holy mother of Christ, that's big.
Just kidding, it's not that big. In person, it actually looks really cool.
Wow.
Bold, strong.
Wow.
The M4 is the two-door coupe alternative to the M3 Saloon. We've already shot a review of that car, so make sure you watch that film to get the lowdown. Both use a 3-litre 6-cylinder engine, both have access to 510 horsepower, and both are seriously fast. So why would you want an M4?
What have they done?
Well, it's possibly the better looking of the two cars.
Although you wouldn't necessarily think so looking at it from this end, because both the M3 and the M4 have an identical front. My new favorite grille? I was being harsh earlier. I actually quite like the way it looks, especially in black. This thing is a bit of a statement piece for BMW. They decided that they wanted to make an impact on the car market, to go big or to go home, and they definitely, they went big. It's actually a case of form as well as function, because it's there to help keep that 3-litre 6-cylinder engine from overheating. It funnels cool air into the high temperature radiators at the front in order to keep this thing at an optimum operating temperature. Although looking at the size of it, it's probably sucking a bit too much air. If you ever feel yourself feeling a bit short of breath, it's probably because there's an M4 driving by trying to keep itself cool.
Speaking of vents, these keep the brakes cool, and these funnel air around the front wheels to increase aerodynamic efficiency. The wheels are 20-inch on the rear, 19s on the front, and rubber is Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. As for brakes, you get a choice of 380mm steel with red, black or blue calipers, or 400mm carbon ceramics with gold calipers, saving 15 kilos all round. The car you're looking at here has the optional carbon pack, which gives you carbon on the lower vents, door and diffuser, although the carbon roof comes as standard.
Where the M4 is considerably different to the M3 is from about this point backwards. It doesn't have 4 doors like the M3 does, it's a coupe, and the roofline slopes quite elegantly towards the C-pillar. I also like the fact that it isn't quite as fussy and as complex as the M3, which had weird slashes and creases that looked a bit too busy for my eyes. I will complain about the Hofmeister kink though, or the lack of. On traditional BMW cars, you get a little kink that goes back on itself, but this thing points the wrong way. BMW purists are gonna absolutely hate that. Meanwhile, at the back, you get a unique set of lights for the M4. The lights on the M3 look like hockey sticks. These look like lacrosse sticks. I also like this lovely boot lid spoiler with a little cutout section that mirrors these little blisters on the carbon fiber roof, and this intricate, aggressive looking diffuser section. And look at this, real exhausts. Anyway, I know what you want to know about this car is how practical is it compared to an M3. Well, the boot is actually a pretty decent size. You can get lost in there, I like that. As for the rear seats, let's go take a look. Yes, it's just as I thought, it's not the most practical car in the world. I'm 5'11" and my head is touching the ceiling. I wouldn't want to sit back here for any length of time. As for price, well, the M4 costs around £76,000, but as usual, if you shop on Auto Trader, you can buy a brand new one for a big discount. There's one here for £71,990. That's a saving of £4,800. Right, let's go drive it. For anyone that might have thought that, hey, BMW have gone completely nuts with the exterior of the M4, so they're probably going to take it easy with the interior, well, you were wrong. Very, very wrong. They've gone nuts in here as well. Look at this cabin. I love it. Basically, it follows the recipe that was started by the M5 and the M8, except they've just added a load of color and a load of carbon. This car has the carbon pack as standard, so you get carbon on the dashboard, carbon on the center console, carbon on the new steering wheel, including carbon on these nifty little gear shifters. There's carbon everywhere, and the bad news, if you hate carbon, is that you can't get rid of it. It's carbon or nothing. As for the colors, well, I mean, look at this cabin. It's gorgeous. They've gone completely wild with the color choices inside this car. You can have blue, brown, white, black, and all of them look sensational. If you're a bit of a shrinking violet and you don't like a colorful interior, then you can of course go for a more subdued all black look, but I just love what they've done inside this new car. It looks so brave, so cool, so modern, so contemporary. Beautiful. The seats are a real highlight as well. You can go for a standard M Sport seat or these amazing M carbon bucket seats. I say they're amazing because I've never really seen seats like this before. I've seen carbon seats, but in most ordinary cars, quote unquote, when you have a carbon seat, they don't have any adjustability in them. But these you can adjust till you're blue in the face. They move forward and backwards electrically. You can adjust the angle, you can adjust the height to get right up close to the ceiling so you get a really good view outside, or you can slam it down to the floor and sink yourself right down into the cabin to feel really connected to the car. They're not perfect, they're not the most comfortable seats in the world, but I have been sat here for a few hours now and my bum isn't completely numb. I don't like this little carbon lump that's between my thighs, but apart from that, spot on. I really like this steering wheel as well. Generally, I'm a big fan of M steering wheels. Some people find them a bit too chunky, but this for me is absolutely spot on. Again, it's covered in carbon fiber, and a couple of highlights for me are the fact that it now has these M1 and M2 shortcut buttons, so you can assign two of your favorite driving modes to one or the other and switch between them as you see fit. For example, one can hold all the settings for your most comfortable driving mode, and the other could be your most hardcore. The best bit of this car for me has to be the engine. It's the same S58 engine you find in the new BMW M3 as well as in the X3M and X4M, and it's an absolute peach. It makes 510 horsepower, 650 newton meters of torque, so it's good for 0 to 62 in 3.9 seconds, and flat out with the limiter 155 or without the limiter 180 miles an hour. It's so strong, so quick. It uses a lightweight crank. The crank weighs 20 kilograms, and it's the same one you find in the M4 GT3 racing car. And one of the benefits of that is that it allows the engine to rev up so smoothly and so freely. It just spins up so quickly, it's absurd. Peak torque is available from around 3,000 RPM up to 5,500 RPM, where you get the full 650 Newton meters, but peak power comes in much later, just above 6,000 RPM. That means that in a nutshell, it does a really good imitation of a naturally aspirated engine, and it makes it really worthwhile chasing the revs and feeling the engine reach that crescendo where you get full power towards the top end. It's a hell of a unit. I'm probably less impressed by the transmission. The previous M4 used an MDCT dual clutch transmission, but in this, they've gone for an 8-speed ZF automatic. And I think the car really suffers because of that. It's not that it's not a good box, it's just that it's not as engaging as the previous version. They still have a Drive Logic selector button down here on the gear selector, which apparently lets you choose your level of aggression in your gear shifts, but honestly, no, none of those settings make any difference whatsoever. They all feel just a bit too calm, a bit too seamless. There's a pecking order, isn't there? There's manual boxes, which are the best, then you have DCTs just below that, and then you have automatics at the bottom. And automatics, as efficient as they are, as smooth as they are, in a performance car, nah, not for me.
There are three main driving modes in the M4, selectable via the M mode button: Road, Sport and Track, giving you more aggressive steering, throttle and a stiffer ride. The Track mode even switches off the main screen to help you focus. If you don't fancy any of those three modes, you can press the setup button to individually adjust almost every element and assign those to a steering wheel preset.
In terms of handling, it's a really accomplished car, really capable. They've calibrated the electronic power steering system really well, so you can actually feel exactly how much grip and traction you have on the front end, which gets you settled into the corner. You can trust exactly what the car's about to do as you enter a bend, which in turn gives you enough faith to calculate just how much pressure you can apply to that throttle on the exit. And that's quite important because the back of this car is very, very lively, and applying a bit too much to the accelerator on the way out of a corner, that can definitely bring the back end around on you, and you have to be quite quick, quite on your toes in order to apply a bit of counter steering to mitigate that. It's a lot of fun, but the car definitely keeps you on your toes. I like that.
The M4 even has a 10-stage traction control. At level 10, the system works hard to keep you in line. Dial it back and you get progressively less help, with the settings in the middle amounting to what is essentially a variable drift mode. The car will even rate your drift in terms of length and angle. But for those moments when you're driving normally on the public road, the M4 can be surprisingly docile, livable with good suspension and a quiet cabin. There's reward in driving this car almost however you like.
It's got this really nice character and balance to it that makes it feel really sweet when you're threading it down a back road. The whole car feels alive and responsive and smooth and flows really, really nicely. How does it compare to the M3? Well, both cars have a 50-50 weight distribution. Both cars weigh as near as damn it exactly the same. But there's something about the M4 that makes me feel as if this is the sportier car. And I can't tell if that's all in my head, but there's something about the M4 that makes me feel a little bit more connected to it. Just feels that little bit more engaging. Maybe it is all psychosomatic, but either way, sensational thing to thread down the road. It really is. I realize I've said an awful lot of positive things about this car, so I feel like maybe I should throw in a couple of negatives. And okay, yeah, I would say the M4, given the level of performance you get, should sound a bit better. The engine note isn't bad, but I'd prefer some pops and some bangs just to ram home the fact that this is a performance car. Apart from that, I can't really fault it. I mean, it's got a big grille. Maybe that's the biggest criticism. But come on, if that's all you got. Honestly, the M4, it's the nuts. It really is.
So what's my early verdict on this car? I really like it. I love what BMW have done here. Yes, with the performance and the handling, and actually, especially the design. Controversial, I know. They could have played it safe, but we should all be grateful they didn't. If you prefer the previous M3 and M4, well then go and buy the previous M3 and M4. But if you want a car that pushes boundaries in design while still delivering thrilling, engaging performance, you definitely need to get a closer look at
What have they done?